somewhere, a very long time ago, before writing, before cities, before anyone could explain why, a human looked at something they couldn't see, touch, or prove, and believed in it anyway. We don't know exactly when this happened. We don't know exactly what it was, but we know it had to happen at some point, because every human culture ever studied, no matter how isolated, has some form of belief in something beyond the physical world. So somewhere, there was a first time, a first belief. And the strange part is, we can get surprisingly close to guessing what it might have been. Let's start with the clue hiding in plain sight, the dead. Across nearly every ancient burial site archaeologists have uncovered, going back over 100,000 years, there's a pattern that shouldn't exist if early humans only thought in practical terms. Bodies weren't just left behind or discarded. They were positioned deliberately, curled into specific poses, covered in red ochre pigment, buried with tools, shells, even flowers, based on pollen traces found at sites like Shanidar Cave in Iraq.
Here's the question that should stop you for a second. Why bother? A dead body doesn't need a tool. It doesn't need decoration. If early humans were thinking only about survival, none of this makes sense. You don't waste scarce resources, time, and effort on someone who can no longer hunt, gather, or reproduce. Unless, somewhere in that decision, there was a belief that something continued, that the person wasn't entirely gone. This is where most anthropologists point to one of the strongest candidates for humanity's first belief system, animism. Not animism in the cartoonish sense of worshipping trees, but animism as the idea that things which aren't obviously alive might still have some kind of spirit, force, or presence. Animals, rivers, wind, ancestors, the dead. Anthropologist Edward Tyler, writing in the 1800s, proposed that the very first religious idea wasn't about gods at all. It was about dreams. Think about how strange a dream actually is if you have no scientific framework to explain it. You go to sleep. Your body doesn't move, but in your mind, you walk, you talk, you see people who are far away, or even people who have died. When you wake up, your body never left the room. So where did you go? Tyler's theory was that early humans took this seriously, not as imagination, but as evidence. If part of you can leave your body and travel while you sleep, then maybe that same part continues to exist after the body stops working entirely. In other words, the first belief might not have been about a god in the sky. It might have been about a self that doesn't fully die. This theory connects directly back to the burial evidence. If you believed that a person's spirit or soul or essence kept existing after death in some form that could still be aware, then suddenly burying them with tools and ochre and flowers isn't strange at all. It's practical. You're not honoring a memory. You're equipping a traveler.
But there's a second, equally old candidate for humanity's first belief, and it doesn't come from death at all. It comes from fear. Specifically, the fear of things you cannot see but can sense. Long before any formal concept of religion existed, early humans lived constantly exposed to an environment that could kill them in ways they didn't understand. A sudden illness, a flash flood, a predator attack that seemed to come from nowhere. When something harmful happens and you can't identify a visible cause, the human mind doesn't usually default to "this was random." It defaults to "something caused this, even if I can't see it." Psychologists call this tendency animistic or intentional bias, and it shows up almost universally, even today. If you've ever cursed at a printer, apologized to a piece of furniture you bumped into, or felt like a string of bad luck was somehow out to get you, you've experienced a flicker of the exact same instinct that may have shaped humanity's earliest beliefs. Your brain is wired to look for an agent behind events, even invisible ones, because across evolutionary history, assuming there was a hidden cause and being wrong cost far less than assuming there was no cause and being wrong about that instead. If a rustle in the grass might be wind or might be a predator, the human who assumed something is there and prepared accordingly survived more often than the human who assumed nothing. Over enough generations, that bias towards seeing hidden agency everywhere became deeply wired into the brain. And once you're wired to assume invisible causes behind events, you're only a short step away from believing in spirits, ancestors, or forces that explain the things you cannot otherwise control.
So which came first? The fear of invisible danger or the dream of a soul that survives the body? Honestly, we may never know for certain, and there's a real possibility they weren't separate ideas at all, but the same idea approached from two directions at once. A world full of unseen forces that cause harm, a self that might persist beyond the body. Put those together, and you already have the basic architecture of nearly every religious and spiritual system that followed. Unseen forces, an enduring soul, and the sense that the world is not only physical. What's strange is how consistent this pattern is, even across groups that had zero contact with each other. Indigenous Australian belief systems, isolated for tens of thousands of years from the rest of humanity, developed concepts of ancestral spirits tied to the land. Independently, across the ocean, ancient peoples in the Americas developed strikingly similar beliefs in spirits inhabiting animals, places, and the dead. Neither group could have copied the other. They arrived at nearly the same conclusion, separately, which suggests the belief wasn't cultural at all. It may have been something closer to a default setting of the human mind.
That idea is unsettling and fascinating at the same time. It means the first belief wasn't necessarily an idea humans invented. It might have been an idea humans were always going to arrive at, almost no matter where or when they existed, simply because of how the human brain processes uncertainty, death, and dreams. So what was the first thing humans ever believed? The honest answer is that we don't know with certainty, and we may never know, but the evidence points somewhere consistent. Not a god with a name, not a temple, not a rule book, but something far simpler and far older, a belief that the world held more than what could be seen, that something unseen could cause harm or offer protection, that the people who died were not necessarily finished. It wasn't a religion yet. It was the seed underneath every religion that came after. And maybe that's the part worth sitting with. Long before anyone could write the idea down, before anyone could debate it, defend it, or build a structure around it, a human somewhere looked at the world, sensed something they couldn't prove, and believed it anyway. Every belief system since then, every god, every ritual, every sacred text may simply be a more detailed answer to the same first question that human was already asking in the dark.